Hi folks, Joseph Kursky here with you to examine one of my favorite sites for looking at old historical topographic maps. Now, due to the open data movement and WebGIS and a bunch of other forces acting, we've got at our fingertips a lot more capability to look at back in time with maps. Now, why do we want to do that? Because the world is changing, right? We have a dynamic planet. People are impacting the environment is impacting people through coastal erosion, natural hazards of various kinds, volcanic eruptions, and so on. So there's lots of change happening, whether from people or from the environment itself. And we can look at change over time with these dynamic web mapping tools, all powered by geographic information systems. This one I'm looking at right now is powered by ESRI, the organization that I work for. I'm very honored to work for. So ESRI is powering the web GIS capabilities by having these mapping services out in the cloud and then giving you, the map user, the capability of interacting, zooming, panning, querying, asking questions of the data. Now, this particular web mapping service allows you to look, as you can see at the top here, although it's in Dutch, over 200 years of topographic maps in this particular site. It's called topographic.nl for Netherlands. Anyway, the point is that this is a wonderful site, and it's one of an expanding array of topographic and also historical aerial photo sites that you can actually examine and use. Now let's dig into this one. This particular one is of interest because I was actually there not too long ago. See this little roundabout that's in the center of the map right here? This one right here? Okay, so I was there not too long ago. Let me show you a photograph of my visit there. Okay, so here I was. I actually took a cycling trip because when in the Netherlands, you might as well go cycling. That's what you do. So here's approaching the roundabout. You can see the N210 is the highway there, and this is me standing on that roundabout, looking out into the distance. Here's the roundabout itself with my transportation mode. Getting there, this is the view out to the east. This is the view to the north from the roundabout. This is the view to the south right before it rained. And the view to the west from the roundabout. Why was I at that roundabout? Well, the point is, in that it was at the intersection of 52 North, 5 East. Pretty geeky, but that's why I was there. Okay, so on to the mapping tool. Let's go to the mapping tool right now and examine that area. So here's the N210 looking out there. Notice the elevations here. Oh, right there. Okay, see that, 52.5? Notice the elevation here is minus 9.9 feet, 3-ish meters. Anyway, the point is that we're below sea level. As you probably know from loving geography as I do, much of the Netherlands has actually been reclaimed due to a series of centuries of expert engineering that's been done and land use modifications to bring basically a third of the country up into arable land and also land you can develop on. So a lot of that land is below sea level, as you can see right here from my GPS unit. Now the GPS is not so accurate in terms of elevation. It is accurate in terms of latitude, longitude. Well, accurate in terms of 1 or 2 meters. But the point is that this is below sea level as measured on my GPS, as well as confirmed on this topographic mapping site. So notice the elevations around here, minus 0.9, minus 1.1. Those are in meters, whereas my GPS was in feet. But the point is that all this land was formerly ocean. It was the North Sea. If we use this tool, again, it's over 200 years, so I can go back in time and look at 2008. But in 2008, this highway out here, look, the N210 it actually routes it here now. So highways change in terms of where they're designated and so on. So back in 2008, the N210 went to the north there. By about 2017, now it heads out to the east. And let's just see. These are the surrounding communities around that area. Okay, so we're in sort of south central Netherlands here. All right, so let's zoom back into our desired spot. You can even see some of the fields have been marked. Really wonderful set of topographic maps. You've got all the drainage ditches mapped out here. They're not irrigation ditches, they're drainage ditches, right? This is the Netherlands. Let's go back in time to the 90s and even the 80s. So in the 80s, now this was before the roundabout was built and before the N210 was expanded there, so we can kind of go up and scale on this left side here and find out when that additional highway was built. Looks like it's after 94, and then we've got 1998 there. It was just a small trail then. By 2002, it was still just a trail. And if you go up to 2004, now we've got the road being built there. So sometime in the last 14 years, actually about 14 or 15 years ago, that extension to the east was built. Well, let's go resume our journey back in time. Let's go back to the 1980s. We can see that road still curving around. Let's go back to the 1970s because, what's not to love about the Bee Gees and Peter Frampton, right? So let's go back to the 60s now. You can still see that road curving around, and now it's lesser of a road in the 60s. If we go back to 1962, you can still see that road there. It's narrower than it is now. Probably doesn't have as many cars on it as it does now. And we go back to the late 1950s, we still see that road curving up through there, but in the mid-50s, we don't have any road. We just have those field boundaries. And notice how stable the field boundaries have been over time. You got this, in this part of the country, you've got this sort of surveying system where, in part based on the drainage, but you've got this physical geography where the survey lines are actually southeast to the northwest, as you can see here. They're not straight north-south. Fascinating to be able to do this. I mean, go back into the 1940s and we'll starting to see some different scales now, still at a fairly high resolution, but if we go way back to the 1920s, we're going to see less of a high resolution because this is now probably mapped instead of 1 to 10,000 or 1 to 20,000, it's probably mapped at 1 to 100,000. So we can go back here and even look at the community off to the northeast and see how small that was back then. Fascinating. So we go way back to the late 19th century. We can even see how this area has changed, and notice how small that community was back in 1893. It's only about 5 blocks by 3 blocks, about 15 square blocks. Fascinating to be able to do this. How far back can we actually go? Well, if we go way back to 1819, we can see some fascinating mapping. The symbology has changed, but also, of course, the terrain has changed, and you can really see how the land has been drained and put into cultivation. Really fascinating to be able to look at this. So let's say we go to a big city. Let's go to Rotterdam, and we'll be able to see Rotterdam now in the early 19th century, 1826 here, for example. So we can go to the main harbor and oh my gosh, this is awesome. Look at that map symbology there. And then we go up to 1870, and we can see the expansion of the city. And then we go into the 20th century and starting to see some of the bridges that are there. Early 1900s, right? We've got mostly a railroad bridge. And then you go up to 1966. Let's go up there. We've got a railroad bridge, but alongside it we've got a car bridge, and then we go up to the present time, and instead of this being a open water, now we've got the Erasmus Bridge, which is a beautiful cable-stayed bridge. I got a photograph of that, as you probably suspect. Okay, there's that beautiful bridge I was telling you about, and I just can't resist. Let me show you a few more. It's just awesome. There's me on the bridge in the rain. Oh, it's just amazing. And there's just no words to describe. This is some of the surrounding terrain and historical markers in the area. Here's the other bridge that was built in the 1980s that we saw on that topographic map. So the point is that you've got a wonderful wealth of data at your fingertips with these historical mapping tools, and I encourage you to look at others. I've got other videos and blogs and so on and so forth on some of these other tools, but being able to do this and going back over time is just absolutely wonderful, folks. So you can use this in research, you can use this in instruction, you can teach history with it, you can teach mathematics, measurement, etc., patterns, relationships, trends, change over time, environmental studies, geography, lots of different topics that you can be teaching with these tools. So I encourage you to do that. In this case, it's the historical topographic maps of the Netherlands, but go ahead and investigate my Spatial Reserves blog and other places where I describe some of these other mapping tools. Go out there and explore. Thanks. And tot ziens.